you have dad.
Okay, and I just started the recording for everybody. So no, go ahead with your question.
John, am I clear?
No, I didn't get that last question. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
No, the last question is, when you relatively compare scaled agile framework with the other scaling framework like Nexus,
Yep.
Spotify, what is the advantage of using scaled agile framework?
That is a very good question, and it comes up a lot. In fact, I have a playlist, maybe I'll share it in a moment, on YouTube. It's probably one of the most watched playlists about the comparison between different scaling methods. I'll give kind of a shortcut to that, right? So basically, if you have scaled agile, it's the leading scaling framework today, enterprise agile scaling framework, right? So it is the leading scaling framework. Now, on the other hand, if you're looking at, like let's say Nexus, which I don't think Nexus has gotten a very big share of the agility scaling market right now. It's most of those scale, I'd say less, I believe Nexus, Scrum at Scale, there's a few others. They are generally Scrum only, right? So they only use Scrum, which means that, okay, we've got, Scrum, right? So we're using Scrum, but they don't use like Lean and Kanban and those other principles of flow that you have in Scaled Agile. Scaled Agile is a lean agile scaling approach, meaning that it doesn't only use Scrum. So you see Scrum in the diagrams, you see Scrum in the pictures, but you're not only going to use Scrum, you're also going to use Lean and Kanban. You're going to use flow principles, right? The kind of Toyota manufacturing started those. So scaled agile is it's more inclusive of all kinds of different agile methods, where like a Less or a Nexus or Scrum of Scrums is really Scrum only, right? Does that make sense? So one is really, kind of a combination of different type of, you can use different agile methods.
Sure. Thanks, John.
And we had a few more people join. So sorry, I'm still sending out some reminders for people, but would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself? So we've got Edwin. You want to introduce yourself? Where are you joining us from today? And what are you interested in learning about today? Edwin, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're audible.
Hi, Edwin. Okay, I'm not sure if you can hear me, Edwin. Can you hear me, or are you on mute?
I can hear you, John.
Okay, great. Where are you joining us from today, Edwin?
John, I have another question.
Sorry, is that Edwin or is that Harsh? Or Hari? Is that Edwin or Hari speaking?
John, I have another question.
Okay, let's do one more, and then let me go ahead and let the others introduce themselves. But go ahead. What's your other question?
John, I just wanted to know, what are the kind of chief metrics that we track while running a program increment?
Okay, that's a good question. So some of the metrics that you're going to look at when you're running a PI, you want to look at basically the number of, basically your points that you have committed to versus the points that are actually completed at the end of each sprint, and then also the end of each PI, right? So your team is going to commit to a certain number. And they're going to also, then at the end of that iteration, that PI, your Scrum Master should look at how many people how many points have actually been completed. And then that would be a very important metric. Also features you complete, right? So at the feature level for the release train, how many features have you committed to and how many features have been actually completed? That is also very important. And at the iteration level, how many stories have been committed to and how many stories have been completed, right? So all of those metrics are really key. And then you also have things like the number of bugs that come up, right? So how many stories have to be redone or have to be, go back in for bug fixes. So that's going to be a kind of a metric you're going to check and see, what's the quality of the features that you're bringing out at the end of each iteration, end of each PI. There's a whole good page, and I'll pull that up in a second when I can pull my screen up, on the Scaled Agile framework that you can go to metrics, and it gives you metrics that you can use at the program level, metrics that you can use at the release train level, metrics that you can use at the team level, the portfolio level. So it gives you a lot of different metrics that you can use. I find that to be very useful. And then there are also some sheets that you can use in there to actually track the different metrics, and you can kind of self-assess your team. So those are very useful. Give me a moment. Maybe I'll just pull that up here. Give me a second. I'll put that in. Hold on. So let me see if I can find that for you. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. See if we can get this to pull up. Okay, let's see if we can find it. So sharing my screen. Here we go. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yes,
Okay,
I can.
so there is a section on Scaled Agile called metrics. And you'll see in here, there are metrics at all different levels. I uploaded it, right? So at the portfolio level, at the solution train, the release train, and you're going to actually see that each one, they have different types of metrics that are being measured. Flow, and there's actually some sheets let's see if they've attached them in here. Okay, so you can also see, so this is what you're talking about, the program predictability measure, which is the percentage of the business value that you planned and the percentage of the business value that you actually delivered. And then you're also going to see down here, these are some of the, I told you, downloadable sheets that you can use. So you can actually do a self-assessment with your team, things like how's the continuous learning culture, organization agility, lean agile leadership. And then it's going to create that nice little radar chart there for you as well. Okay. So those, and then you'll also see there's several others. I think you can actually get to those from the main picture here. Let me pull that up. So if you go to the main picture, there at the top, you see it says metrics. Okay. Okay, and you can see the whole measure and grow section right there. And this is a great place to find all of those downloadable things that I talked about. And you can download and use those with your team. Right, so you can do the business agility assessment. You can do the assessment for the program level, for team and technical agility. You just click and download those, and it will have a lot of different metrics and measures that can be used. And then you can choose which ones you want to use. So you can kind of see here some of the different aspects that are measured. And there's also a DevOps one as well. Does that help with your question?
Yeah, John, it was very nice. You explained it very in a detailed way. Wonderful, John.
No problem. Okay, we had several other people join. I think there's a lot of stuff going in the chat. So let me see who we got here. Edwin's driving. Okay, no problem. Okay, and we got Elizabeth. You're there. Edwin was connection bad. Okay, let's see who else is on with us here. All right, so we've got Haidong. Did you want to introduce yourself? Where are you joining us from today? Haidong, are you there? Haidong Chen? Haidong, are you there? You're on mute. All right. Well, we got Peace. I think you've been here before. Do you want to unmute and introduce yourself and let us know where you're joining us from today?
Yes, hello everyone.
Hi.
I'm Peace. I'm joining in from Ghana.
Hi.
Yeah.
Welcome. And I think you've joined us 2 or 3 times before. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Have you used Scaled Agile before, Peace? Have you used or Agile?
No, I haven't. No.
Okay, so just learning. That's fine. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And Haidong, are you there? Are you able to unmute? Haidong, are you there?
John,
Yes, go ahead.
I
Gerald.
might have another question, John.
Okay, let me just welcome Gerald and I'll take your next question. Gerald, welcome. You want to?
Hey, John, good to see you. Long time no see you. I just coming to listen in.
Okay,
Thanks.
great. Very good. Joining us from Singapore.
Yep. As
Okay.
usual, I've not seen you in months
Yeah.
or years.
Yeah. Well, welcome. Good to see you online. Okay, very good. What was your other question, Harry?
John, we do have something called as pre-PI planning, which is done prior to the PI planning. So, what is the real need for performing a pre-PI planning?
Okay, well, there are several reasons, right? So if you're going to go into PI planning, which is a very big, it's a very big session, right? So there's a lot that's happening during the PI planning. A lot of people are there. You're probably going to have over 100 people in the room, potentially, right? And they're all going to be working together. They're all going to be working on, they're going to be working on their planning. They're going to be working on, getting everything ready for the iteration. So do you think that you would be able to, you think you're going to be able to do all of that? You're probably going to need to do some pre-work, right? So you're going to need to get together the backlogs. You're going to need to prioritize, you're going to need the product owners and the business owners to come through and decide what stories, what features, particularly what features they would like to see, right? You need some pre-planning for the Scrum Masters to kind of coordinate on, what the different kind of some of the initial stories are going to be, right? So all of that is going to be part of what you're going to see in pre-PI planning. So that's going to happen over the several weeks prior to the actual event itself, right? So when you have the PI planning, what you're going to see then is you're going to have all of that pre-work and it's going to come in to the main session so that you are able to effectively have your executives kind of lay out the vision for the PI and the release and the product. You're going to have your business owners come and speak. You're going to then also have your architect. You're going to prepare a lot of the pre-technical architecture runway. And then you're going to prepare features. You're going to prepare, some of the top stories that you want to see and get everything ready for the team, right? So that happens during pre-PI planning. And that's going to be something that you are going to consistently see if you want to have a successful PI planning, right? If you have a successful PI planning, that's great. If you don't do the pre-planning, though, it's going to be very hard to be successful in your actual PI planning event. Harry, does that answer that question for you?
Yes, John, not too bad. So, John, can I assume or kind of conclude saying that it's a kind of setting up a runway to do the PI planning?
You are setting up the architecture runway. Yes, that's going to be part of it, definitely. You're also setting up kind of the stories and things like that you need to get in place. So that's happening as well. So there's a lot of activity leading up to PI planning, right? And that's certainly the runway for architecture is going to be one. If you mean do you mean architecture runway?
Because John, when when I read some of the SAFe portals,
Uh-huh.
I just came to know that this pre-planning applies only for solution level release trains.
So there's different pre-PI planning. I mean, it's a formal event. I'm going to pull up the screen in a minute. I'm just getting a playlist for you because you asked for that playlist comparing different Agile methods. So give me 1 minute. I want to share that in the chat, and then I'll put my screen up and I'll show you in the big picture what it looks like, okay? So there are different pre-PI planning. There is a formal one at the solution level. You're right about that. But the one, you still need to do pre-PI planning, even if you have one release train and you don't have a full solution train. So that is something that is necessary. Let's see if I can find the Agile scaling series here. Give me a minute. Here we go. Okay, I want to just share with you, you had asked about the different scaling methods. So I'm giving you a link. This is actually a playlist that I did, a very popular one actually, on YouTube that goes through the different scaling methods. I did a few years ago. It goes through SAFe, LESS, Spotify, Scrum of Scrums, Disciplined Agile Delivery. And you can look at that and then you can see a comparison of the different methods. So I'm going to put that into the chat for you. Okay, so into the chat. Here we go. Okay, that is in the chat. Okay, so you were saying, let's go to the, so I'm going to stop here. I'm going to share my screen again so you can see. No, where is it? Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, I'm going to stop video for a second. And now let's take a look at this. Okay, so let's look at the big picture. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, I can.
Let's take a look at the full SAFe. All right, so if we look at the full SAFe version here, you're going to see at the solution level, all right? You're going to see at the solution level that what you talk about, you're talking about this pre and post right here, right?
We can't hear you.
Oh, am I muted?
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Hari?
Yeah.
Okay. So you see the pre and post there in the picture? Is this what you're talking about? Pre-PI planning and post-PI planning?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, great. So what happens is that is formal at the solution level, right? So solution train, you have multiple release trains, and each release train is operating, right? And so you need to coordinate them, and there's a formal meeting prior to each PI planning and after each PI planning, and that is to align all of the release trains together, right? Because you have to align multiple release trains during that. You can see there in that picture, you have multiple release trains in a solution train. However, even if you're not doing it formally like that, even if you're not doing it formally, you still have pre-PI planning that needs to be done even on one release train, okay? So even though it doesn't have a little label here that says pre and post, sorry, you still have to do the pre, you still have to do, you know, that preparation every time you're going to PI planning. Does that make sense? So it's not formally in the picture, but it's still some activity that you're going to do.
Yeah. Thanks, John. John, a quick question.
Mm-hmm. Yep, go ahead.
John, how many days approximately does this pre plan?
It's probably going to go
Planning
on.
run.
It might go on from anywhere for, I'd say, 2 to 4 weeks prior to the pre-PI planning. You would actually start.
No, but the duration.
The duration of the pre-PI planning?
How many days?
So if you're at the solution train level, it's going to be just those short half-day meetings that we looked at, which are here. Yeah, they actually have a schedule for it. You can see it's like a half-day meeting, but that's at the solution train level. But if you're just talking about any release train, there's going to be a series of events, not just one event. There's going to be a series of different events, right? And each event is going to have, you might do like a meeting one day during the 2-week period. You may have another 4-hour meeting with some of the different product owners or business owners. So it's a little less formal. As a release train engineer or as a Scrum Master, product owner, or product management, you're probably going to meet with each other and decide when you need to get together. You may do some things online via email, via like your Jira or your other system that you're using, right? So it's going to be a series of meetings. It's not going to be only one meeting in the case of just one release train. You need to think about that and coordinate with your release train engineer, with your Scrum Masters, and with the other
Wonderful.
program level.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Yep.
John, I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
See, what is the exact activity which happens during the breakout sessions during the 2 days of the PI planning?
Yeah, so there's a full, if you click into it here, and so have you done, which certification? Have you done any of the certifications yet, Hari?
Yeah, I'm an SPC certificate.
SPC, okay.
I've completed my SPC 5.
Very good. Okay, congratulations. All right, so if you're doing PI planning, you're going to see, if you click on that one here in the picture, that there's actually going to be there should be in here somewhere. It will actually show you that in the PI planning you have 2 days, and here's the schedule right here. Can you see that? Okay, so you are actually going to basically follow the schedule very closely for your PI planning. This is what you would follow when you were doing the day 1 and day 2.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Get it, John. So, John, the first team breakouts is for 3 hours on the first day, and the second day is for 2 hours, the team breakouts. So overall, you have 5 hours of team breakouts.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the exact activity that is being done during this team breakouts?
Yeah. So you're doing planning during the team breakouts, right? So your teams, each Scrum Master is going to work with their team, and they are all going to go to their own boards, and they're going to do planning. It's going to look something like this, right? So every team is going to have their own board on the wall in their own section, and they're going to do their planning during those breakouts. And we're going to do a scrum of scrums every hour during those breakouts. And then as a release train engineer, you're going to be going between the different groups and checking to make sure that they are all, aligned and they're all working together. And that, if there's any blockers, they go on the board. We have a board here that shows blockers and dependencies between the different teams. So you should be watching this carefully as a release train engineer as well, right? But each team, like the antelopes, the iguanas here, they are all going to have a Scrum Master working with them, and they're all going to be doing their own planning. There's a planning board here. You see the wall there? So they're all building their planning board for the next 5, if you do 5 PIs, for the next 5 increments during the PI. And they're all planning during the breakout. So during that breakout session right here, Hari, they are planning, and that's what they're doing during the breakouts, right? So as a release train engineer, make sure you're working with your Scrum Masters. Make sure you're going over and you're talking with your business owners, your product owners. Make sure that they all understand what's happening and are coordinated. Don't let people get kind of stuck in one corner and not talking to anybody else. If they have a question, they should go right away and talk to the other team members. That's why you all came together for that PI planning, right? So as a release train engineer, have your Scrum Masters help you. Have the product owners and the business owners walking around as well, and make sure to do that scrum of scrums, which happens in the middle of these breakout sessions each day as well. Okay. Hari, did that answer your question? Yeah, I think Hari lost sound. All right, Vikas, you just joined us. Where are you joining us from today?
Do you have more than one scrum of scrums?
Yes, you're going to have one every hour during the team breakouts. So you'll have one like 1 to 4. You'll have one at 2 o'clock, one at 3 o'clock, right, for the end, and then you'll have one here at 10 o'clock, maybe at 11 o'clock. You'll do a scrum of scrums every hour.
Okay.
Yeah, during that.
So John, what happens during the scrum of scrums during the team breakups?
Right. Good question. So during the scrum of scrums, we're going to have, let's see if we can actually look at an example of one. There should be one here. Let's see if we can find it.
Sorry, John, I'm going a little deep.
That's okay. You have a lot of good questions. I'm sure other people are benefiting from them. So thank you for the questions, Harry. Let's see if we can find the scrum of scrums here. It should be actually in the. Let's see if
Because I understand the general scrum of scrums, but this PA planning breakout rooms scrum of scrums, that is where I'm wondering what exactly is being discussed.
Yes, you are. That's a good question. It is different than a traditional scrum of scrums, if you're not seeing it at the moment. Okay, it is different than a traditional scrum of scrums. So a traditional scrum of scrums is during the execution of the iteration of the sprint, right? And then you just have people, representatives come from different teams to meet. But during the PI planning, it's a very specific scrum of scrums. What happens is, I don't have a picture here, is that you have all of the scrum masters come up, and the scrum masters will come up and they answer a series of questions. Okay, you probably did this in your, did you do the PI planning simulation in your class?
I think your video is on a pause.
John, we are not able to hear you.
Hold on. Sorry.
You're not audible.
Give me one moment. I'm going to join on another connection. Sometimes my connection is not so good. Hold on. Can you guys
Yeah,
hear
I
me now
think
or
in the
no?
meantime, maybe we have other people who have joined, so they can probably say hi, or oh, they dropped off. We can.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're audible.
Good. Okay, great. So what I was talking about with the scrum of scrums is that during the PI planning, what happens is we have all of the participants and they join together. The scrum masters are going to come up to the front of the room every hour, and the scrum masters are going to then be asked a series of questions by the release train engineer. And they're going to ask, have you, do you have any blockers? Have you been able to start doing your points, assigning points? Have you been able to find any issues? Have you been updating the program board, et cetera, dependencies? So it's going to go through a series of questions. You can find those on the Scaled Agile site and also the materials for your PI simulation in the class you take. And then they're going to go through all those questions with the release train engineer every hour, right? And when they're done going through all those questions, then we are now going to be able to go back to our groups. It's going to say, hey, have you identified if you have dependencies on other teams? If so, have you talked to them? Do you have any questions you need to discuss after the scrum of scrums, and then stay after for a meet after? But there's a very specific set of questions that are laid out for that scrum of scrums during the PI planning. And Harry, you're right. It is different than the scrum of scrums that you would have during sprint execution. Does that answer your question?
Yes, John. Pretty much, John. Thank you, John.
Okay, very good. Mm-hmm.
John, I might have another question.
Go for it.
John, while we are in the process of forming the program board and understanding the dependencies and risks, I would like to know, John, what really, I understand the dependencies between the applications and the stories and all that, but what are the examples of risks that you might come across while forming this PA plan? Examples.
Risks when you come across, risks when you say when you're preparing for PI planning.
Yeah.
So we talked about a few of them, right? So one of the risks is if you don't have enough support from your executive leadership, right? If you don't have, leaders to come on board and kind of say, hey, look, we're supporting this PI planning. We are supporting, the release train. You may not be able to get enough people to participate with you, right? Because they're going to say, oh, you know what? This isn't a priority for me. I don't have time to do pre-planning with you. So you really need the executive sponsors to come and show support. If you don't have that, make sure that you get leaders on board and everybody knows, hey, you know what? The leaders are definitely supporting this. Because if your leadership is not supporting, it's very hard to get people to engage with you, right? So that's one, as we talked about. Number two is if you guys don't do enough pre-planning, let's say you don't get your business owners, you don't get your product owners, you don't get your scrum masters and architects together, you may not be very aligned and coordinated when you start your PI planning. And PI planning is very intense. If you've gone through a PI planning before?
Yeah.
So it's very intense, as you know, then. You don't really have time to start figuring all of that out when you get into PI planning. So if you didn't spend a lot of time kind of preparing, getting your backlogs prioritizing the architecture runway that you want, the features that you want, having some details on the stories and breaking some of them, down to top stories. If you don't do that, what's going to happen is you're going to have a really tough time in PI planning because it's not prepared like you expected, right? You expected it to be ready to go. You expected everything to be put in place. But unfortunately, what ends up happening is that because you didn't do that pre-work or not sufficient pre-work, then you have a very hard time having a good flow during your PI planning. Does that make sense?
It does, John. Because I understand, John, that we need the elaboration, the epics should be elaborated. The features should be elaborated. The stories should get elaborated. So all these processes are kind of, you're doing some vertical slicing and I'm making the stories ready for the sprints in the PI.
Yeah, absolutely. So elaborating is really important. Getting people, to kind of add information, fill in some of the details for the features, in particular, the architecture. Maybe you don't understand certain things about that. You're absolutely right. You want to have all that ready to go. So when you come in the room, it's kind of a well-oiled machine. You're ready to present the architecture vision, the executive business vision, the products and features. And then you're also ready to help support the teams when they do their planning breakouts. So yeah, that's really key. Pre-planning is probably really where you build success for your PI planning and your PI execution.
Great, John.
Yep, no problem. Okay, do we have other questions that folks have, things that we want to talk about? I'm happy to go through those now. So other questions? We've been talking a lot about pre-planning, PI planning. Do people have, Gerald, have you been doing any scaled agile or team level Scrum and Agile? And you're on mute there, Gerald, if you're,
John,
you guys can hear me.
Yeah, I
John,
can
where-
hear your conversations. Yeah, but no questions for me. Nice to know
Okay.
about your stuff you're doing.
All right, go
John,
ahead, Hari. What were you asking?
John, where are you located at?
So our company's Singapore based, but I travel quite a bit. So
Wonderful, John.
Yeah. you got it. Absolutely.
You're close
If you
to
have
us.
questions, we do a lot of virtual, so you can ask Elizabeth on there. who's on right now. She can give you more information about supporting any API planning, or if you have upcoming release train or something that you want support from, let Elizabeth know, and she can help to coordinate that with me and with our team.
And John, I might have one last question.
Yep, go ahead.
John, is there a significant difference between the SAFe 5.0 and 5.01 versions?
So that is a great question. Let me pull my screen back up for you here to share. Okay. You can usually tell by the numbers, right? By the numbering that they do, whether it's a major change or whether it's not a major change. We'll take a look here on the actual website, but 5.01 is going to be a very minor change, right? And the reason that it's a very minor change is the numbering. It's not even a .1 change. It's a .01 change. So what's new and SAFe, we can see, there's a few new articles, new guidance for big data and data ops, some things on AI and SAFe. There's not any major changes here between SAFe 5 and 5.01. And you can tell that because if it's a big change, it'd be like going from 5.05 to 5.5 or 5 to 5.1 or 2, right? But when you're going, or 5 to 6, that'd be a big change. When you're going to 5 to 5.01, we can see the updates here, what's new and SAFe at the bottom, right? Recent blog posts. There are very minor updates and changes, so stuff on the solution train, relentless improvement.
Wonderful.
Nothing major is going to change.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And usually if you're certified on SAFe, you don't have to even recertify for such a minor change at all.
Wonderful, John. Wonderful, John.
Okay.
John, I have
it.
another question extended to the same context. So,
okay, go ahead.
What special we have in SAFe 5 from 4.5 is more of business agility, right?
Yeah, so there was a big change going into 5. Prior to 5, we didn't have all the business agility incorporated in SAFe at all. So 5 incorporated the business agility. It also incorporated kind of this overview summary. Can you see that on my screen right there? Okay. So we had that overview looking at the different areas. That was incorporated, that summary view.
Yeah.
So all of that was incorporated in 5. 5 was a very big change. One of the biggest changes we've had since maybe like 2.
Sure.
Right? But the business agility, you're right. That was a big change. Tackling business agility, organization agility, continuous learning culture. Adding that, that was a big change in SAFe 5.
Okay, John. Sure, John.
And that is still evolving, still developing.
Wonderful, John. Thank you, John.
Yeah, no problem. Make a note on that, actually. We should probably do a meetup coming up. I think Gerald's going to do one, a different Gerald Cadden, next month. And then we also have, we might do one with the business agility groups as well. Okay, are there other questions? Peace, do you have any questions? Anything you want to discuss on Scaled Agile? Have you been able to take your classes? Have you started to get certified on it?
No, I'm planning to very soon, but for now, I don't have any questions.
Okay, very good. Okay, so I think we've covered quite a bit. I want to apologize if we had to shift it this week. I know that probably shifted people's schedules a little bit because we were originally on Tuesday. But thanks to everybody who has joined us today. We should have Gerald Cadden coming in, who's our SPCT, Singapore-based next month, and he'll be talking about some topics. I'll have to take a look at what he's planning for next month. And then you can always look online to find the latest sessions, links, etc. as well for our different meetups. We always try to cover different topics and open it up. I shared in the chat the playlist on YouTube. So this is what I call the Agile Scaling Tour. And this is a comparison of the different scaling methods, Hari, you were asking about?
Yeah.
All right, if I call you that. So it's a comparison. So Agile Scaling Tour, it's in the chat. If you click on that link, that YouTube list goes through a comparison of Less versus SAFe. I think Spotify versus SAFe. I think we have Disciplined Agile Delivery, or DAD. We have Nexus. I think we have like 5 or 6 different scaling methods, scrums, and you can check those out, and that will give you a good idea. Hasn't changed too much, I don't think, over time. Most of the developments now have really been more in the area of expanding into business agility. But you can take a look at that playlist, and that will give you hopefully a good idea of all the different methods and how they compare to SAFe. And SAFe, I haven't looked at the latest, there should be a CollabNet version 1 State of Agile survey you take a look at as well. But usually they compare, and at the last time I looked, Scaled Agile was definitely the dominant player. I think it was like around 30 or 40% of this Agile scaling was in Scaled Agile. I'll have to look at what the current number is. Not sure if anybody else has looked at that number, but definitely Scaled Agile is the leading player for enterprise Agile scaling right now, and the certifications.
Great, John. Wonderful, John. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, any other questions or things you want to talk about?
John, I might have one more question.
Okay, go ahead.
John, I'm just wondering, like, what could be the common challenges that we might encounter while implementing Scaled Agile framework?
Sure. So implementing, like we said, leadership support, that's really key. That's something that's make or break for your Scaled Agile implementation. If you got leadership support, you're in really good shape. If you don't have leaders supporting you, right, you're probably getting set up to fail. You really have to make sure your leaders supporting you from day one, right? That's really essential. Like we said, also training and certification. And I don't just say that because I train and certify people, right? Sorry, someone's trying to join, and give me a moment. I don't know what happened. Okay, so training and certification is another really, really big one, right? If you have people who are not trained on Scaled Agile, if you have people who are not certified on Scaled Agile, then, and Elizabeth, can you help? I think Wendy's trying to join. Can you see what's happening? Look in the WhatsApp group on that. If you have people who are not certified, not only, are they not prepared, they really don't understand. A lot of times they're very confused. They don't understand what you're trying to do in your release train. They don't understand what a PI is. They don't understand how to do feature, planning features and breaking them down to stories. And they really don't understand how Scaled Agile works. And unfortunately, what happens is that can often cause a failure, or at least not very successful PI, not very successful release train, because people don't really know Scaled Agile. I mean, if you look at the picture, let's look at the full picture here, right? If you look at that full picture, Hari, Scaled Agile is not simple. It's not simple, right? It's definitely not simple. So you can imagine if you got a whole team of people who have never seen Scaled Agile before, right? And they've never taken a certification and never taken a training, they're going to be really confused, right?
Right.
So they're not going to have any idea what to do. So you definitely want to get people certified and trained. It's not just training and certification for the sake of it. It's actually the training and certification for the sake of actually people understanding what they're doing, right? You want people to get, what is this about? What's a PI? What's a feature? How do we use points? What's business value? Have a skilled release train engineer, right? A skilled release train engineer is a big deal, because let's say that you are an SPC, right? But you're very new. This could be very challenging. So make sure you get some coaching. Get it like a experienced SPC, or like I'm an SPC Co-trainer or an SPCT like Gerald, right? Get somebody to support you that is going to be able, has gone through a lot of these. I mean, I've been using Scaled Agile for around 7-8 years, I think, whatever it is, probably more than that now. So make sure you've got somebody who's seen a lot of implementations, who's seen a lot of PI planning, and can help you and coach you so that you're successful, right? Because just coming out of the class with the certification, especially if you're the SPC or the release train engineer, that's not going to be enough. You need to have some experienced people to help coach the release train. You actually see that here. Let's look at the implementation roadmap. So you can see my screen, the implementation roadmap. You guys have seen that before?
Yeah.
Okay, so the implementation roadmap, you have the certifications in the beginning, And you really want to make sure that's the Lean Agile Center of Excellence, that you have SPCs, you have other people who are experienced to train executives, managers, leaders, and help you to plan. You're going to do your planning, and you want to have those people alongside you to support you to make sure you're successful, right? So make sure that you have, a lot of times organizations are doing like ad hoc, waterfall, ad hoc, agile, right? Make sure you're able to really get enough people trained and support you and support your team. And if you're a new SPC, you know, don't be afraid to ask for other people to help and support you. That's what my team does. That's what Gerald does. They're SPCTs. There's many people who support implementations and help provide coaching, right? And that will help you be successful. And then after you've got a couple of these under your belt, you've done 1 or 2 PIs, you can probably start to take more of it by yourself or with your team, your own internal team. Does that make sense? Are you able to hear me? Hopefully you guys can hear me still.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Hari, did that answer your question?
Am I audible, John?
Yes, you're audible. I can hear you now.
Thank you, John. That was a very vivid and very detailed explanation that you had provided, John. Wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate
And if you need help from
Yeah.
me or support from our team, feel free to reach out to Elizabeth. I'm sure she can put your contact in the chat, Elizabeth, and she can help you with that. And obviously, there's a lot of other people who can support as well.
Sure.
Like I said, Joe Cap and SBCT. So feel free to just reach out to the different folks who can help and support.
Sure.
We're happy to do
Sure,
that.
John.
Okay, great.
So, John,
Okay.
what are the mail IDs for you and Elizabeth?
What's that?
What are your mail IDs?
Yeah, I'll put mine in the chat, and Elizabeth can put hers in the chat as well. So I'm Okoro at auspiciousagile.com. Okay, where's my? Here we go. Here's my chat. Okay, and I think Elizabeth, you can put yours in there as well. So you can reach me at. There's my Auspicious Agile. That's my email there in the chat. Okay, and then Elizabeth has hers as well. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm about to find a link for that in a moment. I'm also on LinkedIn as well, easily to find also. So feel free to reach out. Happy to support and help you if you have an implementation that you're working on. And always happy to do that and support as you're doing that. Okay.
Wonderful, John. Yeah.
Yep, no problem. Okay,
Thank
other
you, John.
questions or, yep, not a problem. Other questions anybody has or topics you want to discuss? We talked about kind of some of the new things in Scaled Agile. You can always look at on the Scaled Agile website. Under the big picture, you're going to see the what's new section right there, right? You're also going to see the recent blog posts and different things that are happening with Scaled Agile. So that's always a great place to look if you want to just see what's happening, different advanced topics like Agile contracts. I think I've got a pretty popular video on that topic actually. So you're going to find all these topics. And like I said, the major changes are going to have a major number of changes like 5.1, 5.2, 5.3. If it's like 5.01, very minor change, just take a look at the bottom here or log into the Scaled Agile community platform, right? So you have the Scaled Agile community platform, you log in. I'm not going to log in right now, but if you log in, you will actually have, all the details about what's going on and all the latest changes in Scaled Agile as well. So that's a great place to go, and you'll find that information there. If you haven't done it, I think even if you're not certified, you can get like $100, for the year to access it. I'm not sure what the latest cost is. And it's kind of worth it because you can get a lot of additional updates and content and templates and things that you can use for Scaled Agile. There's a lot of free stuff on the site. So, I mean, even if you don't do that, you can still just use the free content they have on the site. But definitely do that. Check the latest updates and attend the different meetups. Hopefully we'll have one not change day next week for you, next month for you guys. But other questions anybody has? Anything else people are wondering about on certifications, on Scaled Agile, on developments, on what's happening in the market, post-COVID?
You're given a shot. You're going to shot over all the areas.
Yeah,
Wonderful,
absolutely.
John.
Thank you for your questions.
It's quite, it's not easy for people to do that, but you did it, John.
Thank you very much. All right, well,
Wonderful.
guys, if there's nothing else that you guys want to cover, feel free. You can contact me, contact our team at the meetup. You can also contact myself and Elizabeth if you need support on or classes or other things that you want to do. Feel free to do that. We appreciate everybody coming and joining us this month. Look out for the session next month, and we expect to have a really good session for you guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Have a nice day.